Check, check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear me loud and clear? Let's do a quick audio visual check. Let's get a confirmation in the chat. Hopefully everybody's having a good day today. Paul H still awake at 1:30 a.m. Richard Harris been on the chart since 3:15. Make sure we take breaks in between. I saw somebody mention that I'm doing a 12-hour day today, but I make sure to take breaks, make sure to get outside, go do something fun, get a workout in. We spend a lot of time at these desks, and you want to make sure that you are taking care of yourself as well. My pet Eskimo Dakota is going to be back next week. He is still on some medication after taking his teeth out, so probably wouldn't be the best stream with him on there. It might be entertaining, but we're gonna spare Dakota that. So you guys are stuck with me for one more night. Welcome everyone to Slow Markets. If this is our first time meeting, I am Coach Jay. We're going to do slow markets the same way I have been, following Dakota's format, doing a quick review of the major four markets. We'll look at NASDAQ, crude oil, gold, ES, and then we'll also look at, if there is anything moving. Thanks for the liquidity. No problem, 8 Mile Style. Glad to be of service to the community as always. Uh, Welcome, everyone. Remember, anything we talk about today is for educational purposes only and is not a suggestion to take a trade. Do so on your own merits, especially if you're following my trades today. I had a losing day myself. So, anyone that you see on TopStep TV, anyone that you see on the internet, just understand that they're not going to get trades right 100% of the time. And what we really should be doing is identifying ways people come to decisions, and then figuring out if we can take those decisions and make them ourselves. So I will find that risk disclosure link. I know Nightbot has been popping up in the chat and posting it, but I'll post it here just in case anyone needs to take a read through that. How was everyone's day today? How was everyone's day? Did you learn something today? Did you win today? Did you have a losing day? Maybe not trade at all, with the range bound market that we saw in the equities? Armando, I signed up for this. I signed up for this, just like Dakota did the takeover a couple weeks ago. It's fun when we get to do a bunch of segments on Topstep TV, uh, and it's great. I'm going to take some breaks next week. I'm excited for that. But for now, let's get into these markets. Did see a trader say that they took the Nikkei short, kind of scanning around, and this is in a combine. I'm not trading these in my XFAs, especially not in the Nikkei, but looking for that urgency trade that we talked about. And if you're wondering what I'm saying, we mark out the first 30-minute range of all of these markets. So as soon as markets open up again at 5 p.m. Central Time, identifying that range, attaching a VWAP to that range, and looking for volume to leave the range. The Nikkei is probably the most urgent example of this trade right now. So if you took it as a short, when we retested that opening range, you had a pretty nice trade. You know, shorting somewhere near 50% or this test of the range and risking the highs on a one lot was probably about $300 worth of risk. I just put this trade on the seat to measure, where we would be. But it's a pretty nice trade. It would be already be a 3-to-1 if you did take this with limited to no drawdown on a trade. So once again, this pattern playing out. Sometimes you got to scan a couple markets to find which one is actually going to give you the opportunity. That's why I have the quote board up here to kind of help me with that. If I see a big percentage somewhere, maybe I'll just look over there and see if it's presenting a trade to me. But the Nikkei trading below 38,000 right now, 38,000 going to be a major psychological level. And this one is for Chauncey, who said earlier that he wanted D on to trade the Nikkei because I was a little bit scared of it. I'm not going to trade the Nikkei in the XFA, especially when it's in a drawdown. But I'll trade any market that presents an opportunity. So anyone in the short in the Nikkei right now, looking like a really good trade. I do have some other screens up and scanning as well. I do see gold, not as urgent as the Nikkei, but leaving the opening range to the lows as well. So if I trade this, I do want to put this on in micro gold. Let me just flatten this and uh, would love an opportunity to get in short gold here if this is going to continue for a little bit of a pullback. If I got in short gold, do have to take into consideration the high volume candle that we saw not today, but yesterday. You guys remember this range? 27.38 was the high, 27.31 was the low. We checked into that range today, bounced near 50%, but we're above it now. I would not be surprised at another retest of this range, giving us about a 6.7 point move if we can get into a trade here. My anchored VWAP is open, high, low, close divided by 4. What hours of the day is it best to trade gold, in my opinion? If you just look at the charts, it's been a really great trade overnight, right? From the Asian session all the way through London has been a really nice one directional trend for the most part. Once we get into the New York session, we get a lot of overlap. It was a really nice sell off from the New York session open, but gold has been a great market in the Asian and London sessions. All right. If you guys do have any questions, make sure you go ahead and put those in the chat, and we will get to as many of them as we can. But we will do kind of rapid fire through all these markets again. Gold looking like it's going to be a short for the time being. I will try to find my place to get into this, but I would like somewhat of a pullback, at least to VWAP, to allow me to limit risk. And I'll probably be trading a 2 lot micro on this trade. Nasdaq is breaking. Let's start with the Nasdaq. Um, I am hesitant to say that any of these markets, especially equities, are breaking right now. We did have that pretty strong sell off yesterday, but I showed this during at the buzzer, but I'll put it up here as well. We have a VWAP pinch going on, and if you read the book on anchored VWAP, you've heard Brian Shannon talk about these. So I'm going to show you exactly what we're talking about here. We have the weekly VWAP, which is this yellow line up here, and we have the monthly VWAP, which is this yellow line down here. And we can see we're in between the two. Now, when we eventually get a move out of here, it should be a pretty strong move. But for right now, we can see price kind of consolidating into the end of the week. These two VWAPs were pretty much our range for the day once we got into the New York session. So we're kind of at the highs of that range right now. Of course, anything can happen and we can break out of this right now. But any price action up towards these highs, if it doesn't look very convincing, I'm not going to consider that a break on the NASDAQ, at least not yet. Of course, anything can happen, that can change, but we can see where the highs of the range are so far right now. VWAP still in that range and somewhat towards the lows. This actually looks like a decent short to me in the NASDAQ. And people see Nasdaq move 3 points and then go bullish. It depends also, right? Because you might be a scalper. So if the Nasdaq moves 10 points, that might be exactly what you're looking for your trades. For me personally, I'm looking for a little bit more than that out of the Nasdaq, but everyone has a different perspective on the markets, and trade what makes sense to you. Not taking a trade yet, but with these higher time frame VWAPs in the picture, I definitely don't want to take any breakouts right now. A lot of resistance up here at these 400s for sure. And that can change at any moment, but for right now, I think fading the range is the idea. Make sure I get Discord up on the side here. How do you get your levels? For me, all of my levels are based on some type of volume analysis. Um, I look for I'll just show you exactly what I do. I go to a shorter time frame and I look for any kind of volume anomalies, right? So what a volume anomaly is any volume spike that looks out of the ordinary for anything else around it, right? So we see this volume spike here. This was at 10:48 Central Time. That's potentially a level to me. If we scan back and we go to the overnight session, we have whatever this volume spike was right now. This is a spike compared to everything else. I'm looking at the time. This is not the London Open. This is after the London Open. Um, but there was a volume spike. That's a level to me. So now when I zoom out, we can see that the market is somewhat responding around where that level was. Um, and the price is 20,373. Going into the New York session, our opening range was opening range high was right around that 20,373. And why did I pick these prices? Because at some point overnight, someone executed more volume than the average. So this price meant something to someone. When we return to those prices, I want to see whether or not that level is still relevant, and it goes from there. So it's pretty quick. Um, I can just go through and scan, look for an anomaly on the chart. Here's another one here, right? So let's find what price this ended up happening at, and we'll see whether or not that level became important. And what I'm looking at is the low of the candle, 50% of it, and 100%. We can see 50% right here acted as a resistance along with this VWAP. That's a level. Uh, when we trade back up towards those prices, I don't think we've been back up there yet, actually. Let's see. No, we haven't. So you see that there was a seller that came in there, 50% of it held. That was a level, and selling from there. What tool is that? It's just a fib tool. It's just a fib tool, and you can change the settings, fib retracement, and 0, 50%, and 100% are the levels that I have. So I don't use the intermediate fibs. I want to know where the highs, lows, and midpoints of each of these candles are. And this volume indicator is just the standard volume indicator. The only thing I changed was the color. Is that like a GAN box? It is like a GAN box for sure. Yeah, I know the GAN box considers time in the equation also, but the way I'm looking at a lot of these levels, if there's a ton of volume at a specific level, I'm not looking at that as a day trader. I'm looking at that as a longer time frame market participant. So when we revisit these levels, even after a couple of days, I'm thinking, if there was a seller there, are they still there in the market? If there was a buyer, maybe that's a long time frame investor, and every time we get back to their price, they like that price so much that they're buying more. So um, my levels don't take time into equation as much as I think a Gambox would. How quickly does a VWAP have to leave opening range in the New York session for me to take a trade? Uh, Fairly quickly, but it doesn't always have to be quick, right? If I'm looking at let's say today we didn't. I don't think VWAP ever left the range, and we see how choppy these markets were, right? Pretty much flat line on this anchored VWAP from the New York session. We never left the range, traded like a range bound market until it tells you otherwise. Even when we got a breakdown, right? Even when we got what looked like a breakdown, we checked where that monthly VWAP was, and that's why it's good to zoom out, see higher time frame levels. But look at this volume. So it looked like we were going to sell off. We get this big volume here, over 6,000 contracts in a 3-minute period. If I frame out this candle, that gave me an opportunity to take a trade and to limit risk. Maybe my stop was somewhere below this candle. Maybe my entry was at the lows of this candle, which would be even better if I could get that, right? But um, high volume, no continuation gives us an opportunity literally in the next 3-minute candle to take a trade. Now, Coach Paul and I have been talking about, how do we increase the probabilities of this trade working out? Because there's nothing to say if I take this trade right away and this looks like high volume, unsustainable volume that normally gives us a move in the opposite direction. If I take this trade off the lows, my target is not all the way up here at 380. My target conservatively, if I take this trade here, has to be the high of where that volume came in because there was a market participant that sold here. Now, if they come back in and sell, I can't fight that position, right? And that's when we see that kind of failed 3-bar reversal happen where it looks like it's going to happen. Sometimes we preempt it and eventually it fails. This one was a successful one, although we closed a lot higher. So if you waited for this close, there wasn't that much room left in the trade. So sometimes if I'm going to preempt it, I would much rather take it at the lows of where the selling came in instead of at the highs. Because in worst case scenario, I can trade back up to the high of this candle, and if they come back in and sell it again, then I'm already out of my position. How do you put the VWAP on your chart and measure in the rectangle measurements? Again, it's the fib tool, 0, 0.5, and 1. and the VWAP is the anchored VWAP tool in forecasting and measurement tools on the left side of your Topstep X charts. And then you're just going to put high and low of the candle and anchor a VWAP from there. But let's go back to, there we go. Can I share my volume setup? If you're talking about the settings here, it's just 20 moving average, nothing else from there. Let's see what happens at these highs in the Nasdaq. Again, we are testing the weekly VWAP, which is at 20,393. We're above it right now. I'm looking to see if there's some convinced buyers up here, or do we just sell back into the range now? 30-minute range, if I go back to it, we're leaving the range to the highs. VWAP isn't, but price is. Um, I don't know that I trust this move so much. Let's see here. If I traded a couple micros, I think it's a pretty cheap risk. If I got short 2 micros and risked above these highs, about 120 bucks. Let's see. I put this trade in a combine. Again, anything we talk about is for educational purposes. What the idea behind this trade is, we are testing some higher time frame resistance up near this 400 level. Volume so far for the session is at the lows of this range. So when price tries to push up and volume doesn't follow, then I'm going against that trend. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it doesn't. I think it's important to know, especially when you're looking for a setup, what it looks like when it works and what it looks like when it doesn't. I took a trade in this combine on TopstepTV during that second segment that I was on today. Uh, Exactly that. Remember, we preempted a gold long where it looked like it was going to push up, but volume never left the range, and it ultimately turned out to be a pretty good short. So let's see how this one works. I'll leave this trade on. Great filibuster makes a great point there. Why is there so much dialogue, questions, and the likes are on live support? If I was to match the likes, I would have to go on mute, and that would be a pretty big mute fine. So I'm not going to pay that. I'm not gonna ask for likes. You know, like the video if you will. If we're helping you, and not just me, anybody at Topstep, just clicking that like button does help for sure. Um, but hopefully, what we're doing is helping you with your trading journey, and that's what I care about the most. So, uh, filibuster, thank you for putting that in the chat. Um, let's see. I'll let this neat Nasdaq trade work. Gold. Never really got a pull up in gold that I was looking for, and maybe it's just going to go. We can see not so urgent, but this looks very much like last night, right? Where it wasn't the most drastic move, but volume left the range and it's a good short. Another trade playing out pretty well. Anyone in this gold short right now? That's Hassan, that's pretty funny. I'm okay not taking this trade right now. I'm okay not taking this trade, especially the Nasdaq one. The Nasdaq is more of a feeler trade, where there's no confirmation. This is just a fade of, what I'm calling not convincing price action. This isn't a trade that I would take with a ton of size. Some people in gold shorts already. The yen also uh, looks like a nice one. We see same price action here, right? Where it looked like it was going to leave the range to the upside. Ultimately, price comes back into the range, and the yen is this market that has been in this very heavy downtrend under this 200 moving average. We did get a false test up here. I wonder if Coach Paul's in this trade because he talked about getting into this short. If you're short in the yen right now, we're about to test the 50 moving average on the 30-minute. If it sells below that, there's a lot of room down in this market. Is anchored VWAP only available on Topstep? No. I use it on Quantower as well, and that Nasdaq trade is working. It's working right now. Couple points in the profit, about 8 points, and not every trade has to be the biggest trade, right? If this was a one mini, I'd be up 150 bucks right now. That's a good night, right? That was a what couple minutes of analysis, taking the trade. I think we've been in it for less than 5 minutes. Doesn't have to be the biggest trade, but some of these, a quick setup where you can, build a little bit of a buffer for your day before, some bigger opportunities present themselves. Told you those 400s were weak. Yeah, I agree. Price traded above 400 didn't look like any convincing buyers. And of course, anything can change. That's the one thing about volume. You don't really get to decide when it comes in. We can make assumptions about when volume comes in, right? Market opens, around news events, and things like that. But there are also those times where a random headline might drop and you get a volume spike out of nowhere and could change the market structure. But for now, if we're going with probabilities, it's a pretty low probability time for volume to just come in and spike up here. So uh, I think it was a pretty good risk to reward trade. Just do 10 contracts for 2 points. That's an option. That's an option. Um, can you show that on gold? Yeah, here it is on gold. I think I saw that question kind of late, but same idea. Volume leaving that range and looks like a decent short. The one trade I'm really waiting to set up is platinum. I'm looking for platinum to pull back to about 1030, 1032 to take a long. But I'm seeing some people saying platinum is leaving the range, probably to the downside. The one reason I mean, you could take the platinum short because again, you don't need to get the market direction right to get a trade right, and the trade setup right now says a pullback in platinum. Um, the one thing I'm looking at is this 200 moving average in platinum, um, and how much of a support it's been every time we've tested it. So I'm looking for the market to maybe pull back into it a little bit to potentially take a long. Um, it's a trade, right? Do you guys remember the ES trade I took yesterday? ES trade I took yesterday, towards the end of slow markets last night. I want to talk about that trade a little bit because I know there was a trader in the chat that took it as well. Um, give me 1 second. I can't remember exactly who took the trade, but it was short for a quick scalp, right, into volume. Right now, kind of what the yen just did, right? Where it pushed up above the range, volume didn't necessarily leave the range. So I took a quick trade for a scalp back into volume, and it worked out, right? $250 trade with a one lot. I'm not going to complain about that, but sometimes, what was this really? And that's the way I'm reading it. It was a potential to take a trade, and we get traders to ask all the time, right? If you know it's going to pull back to here, why not take that trade instead? Because sometimes it's not the easiest to switch your brain to the other side. This is a great long setup. Volume finally left the range. We tested the high of the range and didn't get into it. Now, if I wasn't in this short, do I miss this trade? Right. And that's a question. So on those pullback trades, just understand that the pullback may be for a better setup in the opposite direction. And this is a plus plus long setup here. But being in this short for a couple points may come with the opportunity cost of getting into this trade. Platinum definitely does follow gold. Uh, Chuvasco, the gray green boxes, just rewind, or I would say for anyone who has questions about the exact setups that we're talking about, because I don't, um, I know there's a couple of people who have seen this. Uh, Slow markets from October 3rd. I did a takeover for Dakota. I think that was probably the best uh, session that I've done explaining this exact setup. So I would definitely suggest watching that. Right, stay with us for now. We'll talk about live setups, but that slow markets, I think I did a pretty good job at explaining exactly what this setup looks like. And then if you have any questions, hit me up in Discord, and we can talk about it there. Dakota is going to be back on Sunday. Platinum looks like it's a trend to me. Why does it look like a short? Uh, it's a, I would say this is a shorter time frame short, right? Shorter time frame short where volume looks like it's leaving the range to the downside. But I agree, platinum is in the trend. I would be looking for a pullback to this 200 moving average to try to get in long here. All right. Any other markets we see moving? And if you need the symbol for platinum, it's PL. And remember, guys, if you don't know the symbol for something, you can just type in the word, right? The symbol for copper is HG. You might not know that off the back of your hand, but if you just type in copper on Topstep X, it shows up and you can just click on that. Oda needs to get a new room. ZN is moving. Interesting. Sometimes the bonds are really nice overnight trades. I don't know how many people trade them, but sometimes they're really nice overnight trades that end up being some of the best trade location on the day. They move very slow, but they can present some pretty good opportunities. Bonds, the notes. Rodrigo asked, "Did you consider the delta data for the trade at the bottom 20,270 in the Nasdaq?" Off of that 200 moving average. Oh, sorry, it was off of the what was that? Monthly VWAP. I didn't look at the delta. I can look at it now and tell you what it was. Uh, Obviously, that's not on TopStep X yet, but I can look at it on Quant Tower and tell you exactly what it was. I'm looking at a 15-minute candle. The 15-minute candle that was at 11 a.m. Central Time had negative 1,000 delta. And then the one right after that, and these are 15-minute candles, had positive 1,000 delta. So just a lot of exchange of inventory there. Makes sense that it happened at a VWAP. And uh, yeah, nothing definitive, right? That negative 1,000 delta at the lows got absorbed, and they couldn't push price lower. Now we see with this Nasdaq trade where it presented, and this is where setting expectations for the outcomes of your trades are important. This was a scalp, right? This wasn't that urgency trade that we had in gold or in the Nikkei, where an urgency trade would have said volume is leaving this range and I want to go with it. Volume is still in the range, so I can't treat it like a trend trade. And we see what happens now, right? It presented some profits to me, uh, but it wasn't more than just a scalp. So when you're taking your trades, I think it's okay to have uh, you know a profit target all the way down here, but the market needs to agree with this and show you that it agrees with your trade idea. For me, knowing that this was a scalp because this volume is still in this range, I should be out of this trade by now. Going on Nick for a tick, Deanna as well. Can't sleep. Yeah, I think it's something with all of us. I think I was up for Deanna's show as well this morning. I didn't say anything in the chat because I was just waking up, but I've been up since then as well. Um, let's see. Which books do you recommend for learning more about volume? Uh, to be honest, I haven't read a book on volume, but I would suggest looking at. There is a book on it. I haven't read it. Full disclosure, I have not read it. But I have looked at her YouTube videos, and it's Anna Cooling. You can look up her YouTube videos first, but she has a book called A Complete Guide to Volume Price Analysis, and I think it's really good stuff. Right, you could get a lot of information from her YouTube, but if you're looking for a book, uh, I would definitely suggest taking a look at that. And I'll put her name in the chat. Rich says, I feel like Coach Jay has been on my screen all day. Rich, I have been on your screen all day. But thank you for joining. That means you've been watching. Hopefully, anything we've been saying has been helping you. And Only a couple more hours of me on your screen, and then we'll get a little bit of a break for the weekend. Why don't you have the EMA? Do you use the 9, 20, 48? I don't use EMAs, Amara. I use SMAs, and I use the 20, 50, and 200 SMA, and that's thanks to Coach Paul. Right? Any other markets look like they're moving right now? Let me know. I'm just gonna take this Nasdaq trade off because I just don't want to look at it anymore. That's one that we should have been out of. Uh, Nick says Jay needs a raise in a bed. Nick, you know Topstep pays us in hugs. That was a joke. That was a joke. No, we do get treated well for what we do here, which is great, and I appreciate being here. Uh, but look at gold. Looks pretty good. We'll look at the Nikkei. The Nikkei was selling off earlier as well. Um, Rejected at that 38,000 level, and looks like it's going to continue lower. What is the difference between an EMA and an SMA? It's just a different calculation. Ultimately, what ends up happening is EMAs usually end up closer to price because it takes the more recent price action into consideration. I'm going to regret not shorting Nikkei tomorrow. See if it gives you an opportunity. Right? See if it gives you an opportunity to potentially get into that trade. Question: I noticed a lot of traders posting in the Trade of the Day channel on Discord use ICT. Have you ever checked into it? I've looked at ICT concepts. Shout out to those traders who are posting trades of the day. Um, is there a coincidence or not? I don't know. I think they're solid concepts. Pretty good ways to look at the market. I think there's a lot of overlap in what I how I look at the market as well. Uh, so if that's a pattern that you've noticed and you're interested in ICT concepts, maybe trying to figure out what those traders are looking at if they continue to post trades of the day. So could be good information. Um, and everyone's gonna have their opinions about people. The one thing I say, regardless of how someone is, maybe you don't resonate with the way they speak, maybe you do, but I think there's something to learn from anyone. There was somebody actually in the chat today that said they didn't like the way I spoke, and then one of the mods muted them. But I really wanted to know what they meant, right? Like I heard someone say the other day, sometimes a critic is your best consultant, and hearing what people don't like about you may give you an opportunity to improve. So, as long as it's to me packaged in a good way, if you say, "Hey, I don't like the way you do such and such," it only makes me better, right? So, with the ICT concepts, if you don't like the way he delivers information, maybe it's not for you. But I think the concepts themselves are pretty good. Some people have a problem with your accent, D. D. Everyone thinks you're always bullying people. I think it's awesome. I'm missing the Mavs game. Did Clay do anything? Did Thompson do anything? I hope so. Hoping Clay has a great season. You see the yen here. The yen is looking like a really nice short about to set up. I would love a test of this opening range and uh, rejection of it. Don't know if we're gonna get it, but if I could get a test of the opening range in the yen, I could risk the highs and be risking about 150 bucks. So I'm gonna stay here. Actually, you know what I do? First of all, let me check if there's any news out in Japan because that could change everything. Japanese leading indicator. Hopefully, it leads us to the downside. Um, I'm gonna put a short order in the yen at the high of that open at the low of that opening range. Playing well. That's good. I'm hoping Clay has a good season. Again, we won't turn this into the basketball stream, but I'm excited for the season to start. Is a lot of good storylines out there in the NBA right now. Marcelo calling it a night. Have a good night. Come on, yeah, and don't do this to me. Give me an opportunity. Clay has 16, 6, and 1. Wow. It's a good start. Rodney Daniels, you started the basketball conversation yesterday, so uh, someone had to do it. Someone's in long gold here. Opportunity for a pull up, and gold is in this higher time frame uptrend. So I can see that we did bounce off of that 50 moving average. We're kind of holding it. We are below the 200 moving average, and let me increase the size of these lines so we could actually see them. Wait, we are below the 200 moving average in gold. And I think this is why I was looking to short during fast markets earlier. So 27.46, if you're long gold, you definitely want to see price get above that. Nasdaq finally broke. It's trying, but it's not going anywhere. It's kind of stuck here. Any other questions? Let me know. Looking at the yen on a side screen just to see if it gives me that opportunity to get in. Uh, and we'll keep scanning. Anyone see anything else moving? Let me know. Oh, we did. We missed the 9 o'clock or 8 p.m. volume spike in gold, but nothing really happened. Got this little bar here, somewhat of a spike of volume. Not too much of an anomaly based on anything else. So we'll see. I see lean hogs moving. So hogs are actually closed right now. But yeah, they were the biggest percentage mover to the downside. But hogs are closed. We can trade them between what are the hours for hogs? If Coach Hoop is in here, he knows. I think it's just 9:30 to 2 o'clock Eastern time. Does copper typically follow gold? Seems like there's liquidity keeping it where it is as GC is trending lower. I think there is some correlation. I don't pay too much attention to that correlation, but I think there is some. Um, I don't pay too much attention to it though. When we see gold, if buyers are sitting on the ladder at 27.41, uh, you're asking if there are buyers at 27.41 in gold on the ladder. Topstep X ladder only goes 10 down, 10 up and down. So I'll have to try to pull up the ladder on another platform. Give me a minute and I can do that. But let me see. Is it change the symbol? Do that. Deanna, thank you for that. D says copper and gold are not correlated. And I see at 27.41, the biggest order I see in gold right now is at 55 contracts at 27.42 and a half on the buy side. There's the bouncing gold. Yeah. If it gets back above this 200 moving average, gold is going to just continue to run, which I think if we look at this pattern, right, we traded under the 200 moving average for a couple days, kind of consolidating around it. And same thing here, right, where we trend up, we trade below this 200 moving average for a couple days, and then once we get back above it, it's all-time highs for 2 weeks straight. So uh, gold is in a very strong uptrend. Any trades that I would take short are more of a day trade, quick scalp, reversion back to the mean trade, but I don't want to be short gold for a very long time. Um, Brishti Pervin says nothing is moving now. You have too much screen time today. You can end the session early, get some rest. I thought about it. We may end a half an hour early. I feel good now. I feel okay. Not tired or anything like that. But I think you're right. I don't see a great trade setup. Someone did mention silver. Uh, Silver starting to leave this 30-minute opening range to the upside. Silver is a very expensive contract, $25 a tick. So maybe trading micro silver if you're going to uh, participate in this market. But looks like it's starting to break a little bit. Again, if I got long silver, got to watch this 200 moving average on the 30-minute, which is at 34.25.5. Uh, so just watch out for that. Again, just scanning, guys. This is usually how my process goes. I scan around and look for the one that's presenting a good trade, and then I'll take that. And if it's nothing, then that's okay. It's nothing, and I won't take it. Uh, I see gold pulling back up to this view up. Let's see. Again, I'm just gonna put this on in the combine for now. We're gonna sell two gold. We're gonna risk the highs of the range, and just see if the concept plays out. Volume left of the range to the downside. Again, this is going against the higher time frame trend. My target would be 38 on this, and let's see if it works out or it doesn't. Probably not, because this volume. What's the difference between this volume and the volume that we saw in? What was a good example? We had a good example the other day where. Oh, here it is. What's the difference between what gold looks like right now and what the yen looked like the other day? Right, where gold from a technical perspective is saying that that short is valid, but the difference is the urgency, right? There's no urgency in this gold move. It's kind of trickling lower, but there's not a convinced seller. There's not a need to sell gold here. In the yen the other day, there was a need to sell the yen, and there was no questions about where this market was going. This is the type of price action that I'm scanning for, and that's why I'll go through these charts so quickly. Because if it's not this urgent, then I'll just ignore it for the rest of the night. I don't have to take a trade. But if it is this urgent, then I definitely want to be a part of this because that urgency turns into this trend for the rest of the day. And we're not seeing that really anywhere. I'm not even seeing it in the yen, so I'm going to cancel this sell because it's not an urgent move. Savage says GC just broke a 2-minute downward trend line, may run up to Globex Open. Yep. Yeah, I could definitely see that. And the reason I'm putting this on right now is because I want to show we show a lot of examples of when these trades really work out. It's good to know what it looks like when it won't work out. So again, this isn't a combine that is always ineligible for funding. All of us coaches have combines to kind of test things out and to do these sessions when we don't want to trade in funded accounts. But think about it: if you took this gold short at VWAP, there is some validity to the trade because volume left the range to the downside. But then we got to zoom out. Higher time frame, gold is in an uptrend. So it presented what may have been a quick trade, but we're fighting the overall flow of gold that has been in for the year, right? So it may present a quick trade to you, but not much more than that. Mm. Tabernacle of the Congregation, will you be my mentor? Yeah, join me every day for At the Buzzer. Join me in the Coach J chat in Discord. I don't do one-on-ones right now, but you can definitely join me there. How do you anticipate the urgency? Uh, I think there are ways to do it. The one thing I've learned from Coach Paul, if we look at the yen and what might have caused that urgency, Coach Paul looks at these moving averages, the 200, the 50, and the 20. You see the angle of these moving averages, right? Where there's no hesitation. Here, there's hesitation. These moving averages are all kind of wrapped around each other. I really like this, and I've adapted this as part of my strategy as well. There's clear distinction between the 20 and the 50, and they're well under the 200. this is a way to anticipate it. Now we don't know when it's going to happen, but if we look at we sold off below the 200 moving average, we're starting to hold the 20 and the 50 as a resistance. There's potential for urgency here, especially close to this 200 moving average. Now let's look at where we are today, where the yen is somewhat selling off. But if we look at these moving averages, why aren't we getting an urgent move? There's indecision. The 20, we're in a downtrend, but the 20 is above the 50, right? So that's a little bit of a divergence in sentiment, right? Where in the shorter time frame, which is the 20, we're moving to the upside quicker than we are on that 50, and maybe a trend back up. So I think that's a good way to anticipate the urgency when your moving averages are kind of stacked this way, right? The longest time frame on the top, shortest time frame on the bottom, and there's clear distinction. Then that market is moving pretty fast. Silver to the moon. Yeah, silver's breaking to the upside. Gold looking a little bit heavy. I know they've been moving in tandem a lot for the past couple of days. This gold trade is pretty much break even right now. Where again, it's still a valid setup, but I'm thinking how much room is there down, and we keep rejecting at that 200 moving average. Um, we need sellers to come in. What are the settings on the DOM? My DOM, the only settings I have are right here. You can take a screenshot of it. The only thing I changed was the colors, and then I pay for level 2 data, so we get a couple more levels. Brishti, yeah, I'm happy to answer questions, especially when the markets aren't doing too much. It keeps me from taking trades that I probably shouldn't be taking. So, uh, happy to answer questions if anyone has them. Um, JD says, "Sorry, but I'm fading you on this. I'm seeing a long gold. See what you see, and trade what you trade. Again, I'm not taking this in an account that matters too much. But trade your setup. We could either both win or both lose on the trade. Ultimately, we both have to manage our risk. Um, but yeah, if you see a long, take the long. I think we talked about this a little bit during Coach Jack's session today. But sometimes it's, oh, I'm fading this guy or this person is wrong. Uh, those comments when we see them, and I'm not saying that this was you, JD, because you just see a trade that you want to take. But when people are like very adamant about someone being wrong, uh, I kind of hesitate, like, and question it a little bit. It's just like, okay, you're very adamant about this person being wrong, but w- what about the times that you've been wrong in your trading? Someone could be wrong and manage their risk and still have an account to trade the next day. So as long as we all do that, it doesn't matter. Fade me, I could be wrong on this trade and right on the next one. As long as we manage our risk, we're still in the game. I hope that trade works out, especially if you're taking it in a combine or XFA that matters, and you want to make progress on. I hope it works out. NQ is out of here. There we go. Starting to claim above 400. Looks good. Jay, are you in this trade? I'm assuming you're in this trade, Jay. You've been calling it out for a little while. Nice trade. How many times can you be wrong and still be in your account? How well do you manage your risk? It's a great question. Who said that? Douglas. Did your b-ball season start yet? So, Mark, I actually took a break from coaching basketball to do this. This is the first year in the last 12 that I'm not coaching. So it is a little different for me right now, but I am taking a break. What is your opinion, the fastest way to identify a range day? I feel that by the time I notice it's too late, I've already lost my trades on my trending strategy. And what platform do you use for the order book? My platform for order book, that's an easy one. I use Quantower. For all my personal trading, I do it all in Quantower. And then the other question, what is the fastest way to identify a range day? For me, let's go to the NASDAQ. Oh, we're already on the NASDAQ. And I'll remove everything. So depends on what session you're trading. But if you want to identify the session that you're in and see if there's a trade, for me, the first thing I need is a range, or I need some type of significance in that market. So let's say you trade the New York session every day and it opens at the same time every single day, right? So you're going to come to that and say that's the market open. For me, what I'm going to do is anchor a VWAP to the first handle of that open, right? So it's this 9:30 candle. Come on now. It's this 9:30 candle here, right? So we have this, we'll make it a red line. Now, what I'm doing is as each candle prints, I have this range, right? The high of the range, 20,377. The low of the range, 20,312. And if it's going to be a range day, that VWAP is going to stay flat. So far range day, right? And I think you might have heard me saying this on Topstep TV as well, where this looks really quick when we're going bar by bar like this, but these are 3-minute candles. So now this is 9 minutes of the market doing exactly this. It looks like it's going to break, but this VWAP, watch that red line, it doesn't move. The price looks like it's going lower, but look at the red line. Still not really moving. It's flat. Price looks like it's selling off, right? Red line is still somewhere in the middle of the range. What does price do? Come right back up. Now this is almost 30 minutes where again it looks really quick because we just did it in 10 seconds, but this is almost 30 minutes of what looks like aggressive price action, but the volume doesn't move. So this is telling me this angle is flat. This is a range day. Price looks like it's going to break to the upside, right? Where does it reject? Extremes of the range, still a flat line. We come right back into it. And that VWAP never leaves the range, even when price looks very aggressive, never leaves. It's a flat line the entire time. Price looks very aggressive here, right? Looks like we're going to sell off. Oh man, everything's happening. This might have been a headline and or whatever it was. From a technical perspective, that volume never left the range. What ends up happening to price? Eventually we get right back into that range. So that's the way I do it. Um, it's probably the quickest way that I know, and you'll see the urgency when it happens. Trying to think of a market recently. Oh, gold. Let's look at gold today, right? Gold this morning on the same opening range as the Nasdaq. Now, gold opens earlier, but we're going to use the equity open just for this example. We have a small opening range, attached VWAP. You see the urgency? There's no question about where this is going. Now, we don't know how low it's going to go, but for the first 3 minutes, we let the first 3 minutes play out, or 5 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever time frame you want to use. Now, I'm doing this on the 3 minute, but you could do it on any time frame. I'm actually going to switch to a 15 after this, and we can look at it there. First 3 minutes, we're in the range. We're not going to take a trade in that first 3 minutes. We're going to let it play out. Next 3 minutes, price is leaving the range. Volume looks heavy as well. This is now a signal that I should be looking for an entry. Volume left the range, price left the range as well. I'm trying to get a trade as close to that volume as possible, right? So any test of VWAP, I want to try to get into a short. Now, if we see the price this way, right, you could take a trade down at these lows, but these reversions to VWAP, hopefully your account can facilitate those reversions to VWAP, right? So as close as possible that you can get an entry to volume, the better. And we just continue to sell. You see how many times this VWAP gives us an opportunity, even later on in the day, right? So there's a difference. Um, why is this guy always on combines? Will, I have a XFA here that is in a drawdown, so I'm trading in a combine. Will, what's more important is what account are you in, and hopefully it's doing well. So basically, if anchored VWAP is relatively in the middle, it's a range 100%. Yeah. If that VWAP is a flat line, the market is not going anywhere. And think about what VWAP is, right? Volume weighted average price. So if the volume isn't moving the market in any direction, that line is going to be flat, right? So, but in this case, there were sellers in this market. And how do we know there were sellers? Because this um, is pushing the market lower. What book did you have to study for the series 3? Here is the book that I used, but I don't know that I would recommend this one. Dakota used one from STC. He passed the test, so I may be buying that book a little bit, but that's the one I used. Will says, "Cool, bro. I'm not good at staying cool in drawdowns." I mean, we got to get used to it, right? Drawdowns are going to happen. I'm in a drawdown in this XFA. Uh, I've been trading my personal account pretty well. Didn't have the greatest day in it today, but it happens. It's part of trading. Um, and if you can work through a drawdown, then it makes you a stronger trader. Bravas trader, you are inspiring. I'm just here to teach. Just here to teach. But if I can inspire you, that is awesome. That is awesome. Uh, what was drawn at the open before anchored VWAP? Are you talking about the Nasdaq? If you're talking about the Nasdaq, what was drawn before? Oh, this news candle. This news candle. Let's look at this. So, I told you guys, sometimes there are candles that I'll anchor VWAP to or frame out. Anytime there's uh you know that important news, jobless claims, NFP, CPI, um, I'm gonna anchor a VWAP there. I'm gonna frame out the candle first, anchor a VWAP there, and then see an opportunity. My first trade today was a short in the Nasdaq from 20,420, right? And what was that based on? We had a news reaction. Uh, we had the and this is why today was kind of frustrating because it should have been a big winning day, but you got to execute the whole way through. Um, but 20,420. So remember, we had the weekly VWAP, which was I'll put it back on the chart. Uh, And again, if there's any markets moving, let me know. I'm not going to take a trade tonight, guys. So I'll just keep going through, a couple examples and answering any questions that you have. Uh, but we had this weekly VWAP, and then we had a newsprint. So let me make sure this looks good. Right. So we had weekly VWAP, which is this. I'll make it white line, and then we had the newsprint, which was above that white line, but I didn't see any convincing buying after that news printed. Right. So uh, I'll frame out the news candle. I'll attach a VWAP to it and same example, right? Flat line. So what does that tell me? Fade the extremes of that range until it breaks. When we pushed up to 420 and couldn't take out the high of the news candle or 428, I took a short right away. Now my risk is going to be fairly tight on this because if volume just comes in and pushes, then I don't want to be in that trade for very long because maybe the market likes that news and it's just going to push. But from a technical perspective, when we traded back up to the high of that range, there were no buyers. Now think about these news reactions as well. We know that the order books clear out. There's usually going to be a big spike in volume, but these are happening before the market opens. So the way I think about it is what's the likelihood of follow through volume after the news prints, right? Now we may get a move in the direction, right? We may get some buyers to step in as soon as the New York session opens, but from the time this news printed to the New York session open, we have an hour. So what that gives me is an opportunity to take a trade in what is a almost immediate high to low volume time, which usually gives us a range. So when we trade up to the high, I take a short. And where's my target? If I get in short up here, 420, the initial target is going to be 50% of this range. So not the biggest trade in the world, um, but I took this trade with three minis, and it was a 15-point trade initially, and that's the conservative target. Now, what I'm looking for is, do we get candle closes below this 50%, and can we then trade to the other side of it? Now, in that trade, that's 40 points. That could have been my entire day, right? But what ends up happening, and why do we frame out these news candles? Because look at what happens once we start getting candle closes below 50%. VWAP starts to trend lower from this move. And now we're rejecting 50% as a resistance. By the time we get into the New York session open, we're leaving this range. right? And now this is from up here into the New York Session Open. If you want to hold it there, that's a 120-point move. If you can capture 20, 30, 40% of that, you had a really good day. I love how Nightbot just posts the risk disclosure like every 15 minutes. I clearly need to learn Top Step X. Spend some time with it. Spend some time with it. Click around, try some stuff out, see what works, and just test out a couple of ideas. Why do I got a short 420? The markets were too high. Markets were too high. Um, no, not don't. I mean, if you want to spend time with Nightbot or any kind of bots, maybe send Elon an email. But no, spend some time with TopStepX. Any other questions we got? We got about a half an hour. Um, and I don't really see anything I love as far as a trade setup. I am going to be on fast markets again tomorrow with Muhammad. Definitely excited about that. Have not got into trade with Muhammad yet. So definitely about excited about that. How's gold doing? Really hasn't moved. This trade has been in the profit, out of the profit. What I really like is look at this 50% rejection at this 30-minute opening range, right? We came up to equilibrium, rejected to the tick. This would be if I was paying attention to this and already not in two contracts, maybe I'm adding here. So here's another thing. And I'm just giving you guys, when we don't get that urgent move, but volume leaves the range, and now this is all discretion, and a lot of traders ask, where exactly would be your entry? If there is a definitive move, the entry is at VWAP. If it's iffy, this is where, and you guys heard me say it yesterday, I would like to get a price better than the average. So prices moving to the downside, and I'm not just cherry picking this example. If you want to go back and test this as on as many charts as you want, um, do it. But when it's not as urgent, sometimes getting a better price than the average gives you a better risk to reward on the trade, right? And now, where can I look for that? First place is going to be the low of the opening range. Second place is going to be 50%. Um, but again, volume is still moving to the downside. My entry is just worse than the average. So if I get an entry at 50%, worst case scenario, I can make money to the average. And then if they continue to push it, then I make money with them. But right now, I'm hoping that sellers continue to come in here. First profit target hit in platinum. Paul, you were short platinum, right? Nice trade. See, same thing here, right? Where volume is starting to leave the range, the better entries are above this average because it's not that definitive of a trade. I definitely have joy teaching. Speaking of my mom, she was just like, "I think you were meant to be a teacher." At some point, I thought that was a career choice. Being a school teacher. I think it's why I coached for so long. Just kind of reverse engineering concepts and explaining it, and hopefully hoping to help people on their journeys. I don't know why, but I enjoy doing it. I'm expecting volatility tomorrow in the Nasdaq. So let's look at the calendar, see if we have any news. I don't think there's any. I mean, we have durable goods. We have a Canadian retail sales number. Michigan sentiment can give us some volatility. Honestly, I'm not expecting too much. I'm not expecting too much. Maybe some quick volatility on those prints, but with that pinch of VWAP that we talked about, between the weekly and the monthly VWAP, if we get some volume outside of that, we're gonna have a pretty big move. But I don't know. Feel like the closer we get to the election, the more consolidated days we're gonna have. We do have some big earnings next week that could give us some volatility, but uh, even with Tesla, right? Tesla just reported the other day, didn't have much of an effect on the S&Ps or the Nasdaq. How do you know when to take a 30-minute range or a 3-minute range? Edison, good question. 30-minute ranges I'm using for the Globex Open, so the 6 p.m. And the reason I'm using that is because it's a slower time. So I'm going to give the market more room to, collect information. I'm using a 3-minute opening range for the New York Session Open just because we're getting more information faster, right? We're going to get a lot more volume in that 3 to 15 minute period. Um, And if it's a small opening range, a lot of times that gives me the best trade location. But you can use let's go back to gold and let's look at the difference between the 3 minute and 30-minute opening range in gold. Now, we know that there's going to be more volume during this time. If I go to a 30-minute chart, if I use the 30-minute opening range in gold and gold opens earlier, but let's just, for the sake of this example, let's say that we use this 30-minute opening range instead. Now, volume never leaves that range. That's a completely different trade. Nick says, I've been playing with the 1 minute opening range on NQ more lately. Yeah, man. I mean, it's the reason I stopped using the 1 minute is because to me it was just too quick. But sometimes it gives you when it's urgent, it just goes, and gives you some of the best trade location on the day. I think today would have been a good 1 minute day, 1 minute opening range day, just because the 3 minute opening range was a pretty big opening range. Let's look at the first 1 minute in with the 1 minute. Not even really. Yeah, somewhat. Okay, so the 1 minute opening range, let's look at the 1 minute as opposed to the 3 minute opening range in the now I'll make these different colors so we can see what's going on. I don't think that helped at all. Uh, what did I just do? Uh, all right, the purple box is the 3 minute, and we'll make the yellow box the 1 minute. Hopefully, you guys can see that. The 1 minute presented a better trade today because volume left that 1 minute range. It never left the 3 minute range. You see the difference? And then we tested 50% of that 1 minute range and gave us a really nice opportunity. So whatever you decide to use, just keep it consistent. Um, that 1 minute range looks really nice now that I'm looking at it. I'm not gonna make a switch. I'm gonna stay with the three, but that looks pretty good. 1 minute mid, yeah, that's insane, Nick. to the tick, to the tick, right? Look at the wicks at that 1 minute midpoint. That is a beautiful trade. Um, Shit, if we were looking at that, we would have been in this trade, right? So, and it's not always going to work like that. And if you see examples of where the 1 minute presents more trades, do some quick back tests, and if the 1 minute presents more opportunities, go ahead and take it. And to me, I would trade it with the same concept, right? Does volume leave the range, and then does it present an opportunity? We can see that volume left this 1 minute opening range. It wasn't the most urgent, right? It left, but it wasn't convincing. So when volume isn't that convincing, but it's leaving the range, where are better opportunities? Somewhere near 50%, 50% rejects, and we go from there. Uh, do you ever feel like you need a bit of a distraction when you start to overanalyze the market? Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think we can spend a lot of time at the charts and even doing these sessions, right? Over analyzing, trying to be, engaging with, all of you guys in chat. It's a lot of screen time. It is. And if I was just trading, I probably would be on the charts 2 to 4 hours a day at max. But because we're coaching, we're educating, and things like that as well. We're spending a lot more time. But yeah, I definitely take breaks. I definitely, between segments and when I'm done trading or when I'm not on Topstep TV, I trade and then I just get away from the screens. Um, right. See how much more time we got. We got 20 minutes. I think good conversation. So as long as you guys keep answering questions, I'll hang out for 20 minutes and we'll see if anything does set up as an opportunity. Uh, Richard Harris says, overanalysis is a killer. You're better off trading as stupid as you can. Overthinking will kill your trading. Yeah, I remind myself of that as well, right? I could simplify my trading to draw a box, draw a line. If the line leaves the box, trade it. It is that simple. And we can definitely make it more complicated than we need to at times, but it's that simple. Did the line leave the box? Yes, take the trade. Manage your risk. How do you avoid fake outs when using volume? Do you use higher time frames, especially if you're going to scalp? The way I avoid fake outs is identifying the angle of view up, right? Let's look at this here. This is a flat line of view up. Now, let's say I didn't have this on the charts. So I'm reading this, and this looks like a breakout, right? We're trading up towards the highs. There's high volume coming in. I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to break. Uh, what position would I be if this is a false breakout? Okay, so I would be buying this, right? I would be buying here for a breakout of this range because it looks pretty strong. Volume came in, but immediately after, this was the highest volume candle outside of the first 3 minutes that we've seen. And immediately after the volume dries up, there's no follow through. So the first thing, if I didn't use VWAP, I would be looking at the what I call sustainability of volume. When we get high volume, the likelihood of that volume sustaining is lower. That's the way I'm reading it, right? Because market participants only have but so much money, right? And it's a lot, but still they only have so much money that they're willing to allocate to the market. So at some point, if volume is not going to just keep increasing, it's going to drop at some point. So I'm reading the volume, and I'm going to show another example of this in net gas. But rejecting from there. But for me, the way I help with identifying a false breakout is look at VWAP. VWAP never followed, right? And this is just a quicker way of aggregating all of this information. Uh, Coach Jay, what do you think of traders who love their analysis but don't take the trades? I think there's a lot of hesitation sometimes, Dolby, because uh, maybe over leveraged in a position, and I'm guilty of it at times as well. I've tried to be a lot better about it, especially on Top Step TV. I think part of the hesitation was wanting to get it right on Top Step TV. I don't care to do that anymore. Right, I'm going to take the trade, and I will take them time and time again because I trust my setups. But I think sometimes it could be over leverage where when we see a clear setup that we've back tested so much, a lot of time there's this want to like hit it out of the park where you may not have earned that, right? So it's just like, oh man, I know that this is this A++ setup, so I'm going to take 5 contracts instead of the one that I should be trading. But even with those A+ setups, there is a percentage of all of them that don't work out. Now, when it works, it's great, but when it doesn't, it kind of is a hit towards your confidence. And then I think sometimes it could be like the too good to be true. Like, you know, is it really this simple? Is this trade really as clean as, hey, volume left the range, reject that 50% and take it? We second guess. It's just like multiple choice questions, right? Where your first answer is usually probably the right one. I should have told myself that on the series 3, but uh, we second guess ourselves with added information. So, um, you guys, if you want the opening range setup, just rewind the video. I think I've explained it actually for every market that we looked at today. Look at platinum. Platinum's down near that weekly average right now. Paul, nice trade. See, Paul took that trade, and here we go. We got a pretty big volume spike in platinum. I've been looking to buy this market. It's not going to hit the 200 moving average, is it? Let's see what the risk is on this with a one lot. Have I have $500 of drawdown in this in this combine. I can't take this trade here. It's too much risk. $200. If there was micros, I would definitely take it. But I'm looking to get long platinum off of this 200 moving average. Shorter time frame. This is a very nice trade to the downside, Paul. Great trade. Nick, no more multiple choice questions, man. Yeah, I get you. Have you made a video on back testing this? Not on this specifically. No. I think all the videos are like again. I'm gonna recommend that slow markets from October 3rd. Definitely watch that. Right. Anything else you guys got? If VWAP breaks the low of the range, do you wait until it breaks through the top of that range to go long? Not all the time. Not all the time. Um, it's probably a higher probability trade to wait for it, but that's more of a discretionary thing. Where if it looks like a failure of, let's say, sellers, if it looks like a failure of sellers, I will sometimes preempt that trade, where it's going to take a little while. So really good point. Trying to find a trade that may have done it. Let's look at Nat Gas real quick. Nat Gas today, we had, is this a good example? So what you can do, what I'm trying to say is what you can do is if it looks like the market set a low, right, or you get a 3 bar reversal, what you can do is anchor a VWAP to the bottom of that 3 bar reversal and see if it holds. I'm giving you guys all the gems right now. Um, which is fine. That's why I'm here. Uh, if it looks heavy, and you got to wait, right? Wait for that 3 bar reversal to confirm. But if you want added confirmation, anchor a VWAP to the low of that 3 bar reversal, and you see how that acts as a support. Now, do we know that this is going to go all the way through here? No, but it's starting to act as a support. So what this is saying is, since we made this low, buyers have stepped in. Now, who might those buyers be? Those might be, longer time frame investors. Those might be shorter time frame shorts who were short in this market here and taking profits. But either way, volume is supporting price on the way up. Wait. Paul, you don't owe me a percentage, man. Just keep trading well. Keep trading well, Paul. And share that setup. Share that setup, man. Again, the one thing, the reason I like volume analysis is because you can't hide executed orders in the markets. And platinum, look at this bid on platinum here. 124 contracts bid at 10,001. Sorry, 1031.9. See if they get filled. No fill, but let's look at what that person might be looking at. You think that person is interested in this 200 moving average also? Not a coincidence that that's the biggest bid that we've seen at this level. Look how supportive this 200 moving average has been. It's because someone keeps stepping in and buying it there. Dolby, that quote board. So the first time I made this quote board, I forgot to save it, and then I had to go through and click through everything again. And it takes what, probably 10 minutes to do it, but I was not happy. So I just randomly hit this save layout button every once in a while. Gold trade is in the money. There we go. See, trust. Oh, why do I have this copper trader? What is it? I mean, platinum trader. What is this? Get out of here. Uh, yeah, gold is working right now. It was slow. It made us wait a little bit, but the trade was still valid. Now we talked about where the better trade location might have been, and that was 50% of the range since there wasn't that urgency. But as long as the risk is managed, I'm okay with the trade. Now let's see where it goes. Coach J's AV up. KW, I appreciate that. And again, anybody who I'm just sharing information, and hopefully, if it resonates with you, you can take it and apply it to your trading. But know that anything you learn from anybody, you ultimately have to do the work to place the trades. So shout out to anyone who is applying information and seeing results from it from your trading. Uh, Ideally, and this is just a hidden agenda that I have, is sharing exactly how I look at the markets. So when maybe I'm missing something, somebody will say, "Hey Jay, look at this," and if I know that they've learned it enough, then I can just take that exact trade without even having to scan the market. So uh, all the extra work I'm doing is to get you guys to think exactly like me. So then I have to think less, and I can just click buttons. Um, But exactly, Dolby. Seeing and executing is trading 100%. I could give you all the information in the world, and that's why I think Topstep does a really good thing here with a lot of this education for free. I could charge a lot of money for these sessions, but the concepts are half the battle. Uh, and the one thing I really like about volume, and I could teach this concept to anybody, is you can't hide volume. Market participants that are way bigger than us need to trade, right? They need to execute in these markets to conduct their business in order to make money. And there's so much money in the markets that they're not going anywhere. Um, but us as day traders need to be able to execute on these setups. This strategy keeps me from over trading. Awesome. I love to hear that. Have I ever traded Ninja Renko? No, I haven't, Richard Harris. I've tried Renko charts before, but you gotta laugh at me, but I couldn't, I didn't know what I was doing with setting up the settings, so I just left it alone. What do I think of Nasdaq right now? Let's see. And we got 9 minutes. Again, we're just kind of rapid fire, hanging out here, watching this gold trade work out. I really do think I want to buy platinum. Where's platinum at right now? Down 0.2%. I'll leave it alone. And I don't knock anyone for selling courses. I've paid for courses myself. So if anyone does it, more power to them. More than anything, sometimes you're just paying for someone's time, right? There's a lot of time and effort that goes into, packaging this information in a way that is deliverable to someone. So if someone wants to charge for courses, by all means. All right. Let's go to this gold trade. And now how would I manage this? Don't have the greatest entry. Let's go to a shorter time frame. Yeah, you see, where would I maybe I'd do this. Let's get out of one. If we get a pop back up above 44, we'll get out of one. And then I'm gonna limit the risk on the other side to 50% of that opening range. See, these are the type of trades I need to take in these XFAs to avoid the drawdown. But this one was a little too risky to take with only $500 of drawdown. I'm going to be trading micros in that account until I dig it out of a hole. Platinum is dropping. Yeah, there was a big seller that just came in on platinum. Um, yeah, looking at the reactions to this 200 moving average, and again, this could be the one thing. So, okay, why am I not just buying platinum right now? And I could, and I probably should, but the 20 moving average is below the 50 and it's going to be, right? Because price is moving lower. But this is a pretty strong candle here. So ideally, I want to see this candle fail wherever it fails. Because this just could just, run another 7 points before bouncing back to the upside. I don't want to preempt a trade, especially in an account that has limited drawdown. But I think this is a safe risk here where just look at it, right? For the whole month, how much time have we spent under that 200 moving average? Is not a lot. Well, for the second half of the month since October 10th. So could this be a change of the trend? Potentially, but if I'm going with the patterns are patterns until it breaks. We test under that 200. It's been a pretty good buy. Stopped out on platinum long $100. Right. Manage risk, Paul. You had a really nice short. Sometimes flipping right away can be tough, but manage risk. Uh, uh, Genuine question. Been watching you guys for a year. Are the coaches paid a salary? I think I said it earlier. We get paid in hugs. Topstep gives out a lot of them. And I'm from New York, so the one thing I know is not to share all of your financial information. I do well. Topstep takes care of us. My trading takes care of me as well. I have multiple streams of income, and I'm always going to. So I am blessed. Nat gas is looking like a long. See, this is what I love, right? Now you guys are just calling out trades for me instead of the other way around. Nat gas, is this a long? So what's the who asked that question? Um, Nat gas looks like a long. Donnie. So what's the one thing I would say about this Nat gas trade that is not a long? Right, and anyone in chat can answer this. Why is nat gas maybe not a long right here? I wasn't in the military. I get that question a lot. So, you know what's funny? I went to the grocery store the other day, and walking out of the grocery store, I was wearing these Jordan ones, and this guy gets out of a car with 4 other guys, and he's just like, "Yo, nice sneakers, man." I'm like, "Thank you, appreciate it." And I go put the shopping cart back in the grocery store, and then I'm, walking back to my car, and another one of the guys, he's just like, "Hey, I'm Sergeant so and so." I'm just like, "Nice to meet you." He's like, "You ever thought about joining the military?" And you could tell he was definitely young. And it's funny me calling somebody young because people say I look young, but I'm like, man, I'm way too old to be joining the military. He's just like, wait, how old are you? I'm 30 until I'm 40. He's like, okay, never mind. Have a good day, sir. Nah, but I've never been in the military. My brother was a Marine. My brother served in the Marine Corps for 8 years. But no, I was not in the military. But yeah, you guys got it right. Volume never left the range in that gas, so you could preempt a short, a long. But where would the better long be in this case? Is it at the high of the range or somewhere else? Volume hasn't left that range, so better trade look. It looks like it wants to, but better trade location is probably somewhere near 50% or the lows. Now again, educational purposes only, not a suggestion to take a trade. But that's how I would be looking at this. Volume hasn't left this range yet. I could preempt a long, but it's a lower probability trade. Nasdaq has no strength above 400. We got 2 minutes left. Let me check the notes to make sure I'm not missing anything. Want to thank everyone again for hanging out tonight and throughout the week. One more day of the week, and tomorrow is Friday. My notes page isn't loading. Remember that we have phone support. 888-407-1611 is the number for our phone support. Make sure that you are friendly to the our support team. They do a lot of work. They carry Topstep. Without the support team, we would not be able to do what we do. So if you do have to call into them, hopefully it's not a major issue. But if it is, be kind with them. They didn't cause the issue. They're gonna help you resolve it. So shout out to the support team. And once you finish with the support team, make sure you fill out a Trustpilot review. Uh, MP reads every single one of them. So if you want to talk to MP directly, send it in that Trustpilot review, um, and go from there. I will be on Fast Markets tomorrow with Mohammed. Excited to trade with Mohammed tomorrow. And I think that is all I have. Thank you everyone for hanging out. Trade well, manage risk. Remember, we do have some news out tomorrow that could bring us some volatility in the markets. You don't have to trade during the news. You can frame out the news candle and see if it presents an opportunity after the fact. And it's a much safer way to trade. So thank you everyone for joining. I will talk to you all tomorrow. Have a great night, and we'll see you then. Bye.